Hey everyone, it's Heather, co-founder of So She Slays. So I'm not sure if a lot of you know this, but I ran a successful crowdfunding campaign about 5 years ago. And from that campaign, I've actually had a lot of people message me about how to run their own successful crowdfunding campaign. Well, I figured I would do a short little masterclass video on this subject and let you know what I did to make sure that my campaign was successful, and maybe I could give you a little bit of tips on what you can do as well. Here we go. So one of the first things you have to do is decide what crowdfunding platform you want to use. I mean, there's Indiegogo, there's GoFundMe, there's Kickstarter, and how I chose mine is I did research on what project does best on what platform. My project was a museum, and it was a little hard-pressed finding campaigns that were successfully funded on all three platforms that would work for a museum setup. But I ultimately ended up deciding to do a Kickstarter campaign because I did find a few on their platform, and they were actually really well done and they raised the money that they needed. But I also really liked how Kickstarter set up their whole campaigns and the time crunch that was afforded to raise the money, and even like the donor gifts and that kind of stuff. I felt like it was really involved way for people to feel like that their donations were gonna go somewhere, and it meant something if they got something in return. Each crowdfunding campaign platform has their own rules and regulations, so I really encourage you to deep dive into what you think is going to end up working best for you and for your campaign. Kickstarter was definitely it for me. Like I said, it was successfully funded, so it worked really well. Now, before you even, launch your Kickstarter campaign or get it going or anything like that, it took me an entire year of putting this Kickstarter campaign together with all the different elements, with the help of, two of my cousins to kind of be my eyes in which, whether this would work or not work, what they thought would be good donation gifts, brainstorming what I could do, so on and so forth. One of the things that you have to do is make sure all your ducks are in a row before you even try and do something like this, because nobody wants to invest their hard-earned money into something that doesn't really quite seem like it's going to work, or that the person running the campaign does not have their stuff together. So you have to make sure your ducks are in a row and that you are doing everything that you need to do before the campaign even gets started. One of the things that I did is I made sure that we already were moving on the project itself before we needed the money to do something. So what I mean by that is, for this museum, there was artifacts that needed to be identified. So I got a hold of San Jose State University and I asked if they were, had any graduate level interns, and this was my project and this is what I was looking for help with. We got interns in, and I had pictures and videos of us going through these boxes and identifying artifacts and so on and so forth. I kind of already laid out the things that we could do without the money that we needed in order to put these artifacts on display and turn these two rooms within one of the oldest Taoist temples left here in California. There was already things moving, already people involved, already people working. So it made it easier to communicate what I needed, and as far as the money goes, and why I needed it. But it also made the donors trust and believe in my project because, again, it was already going. The next step you're gonna have to do is decide your goal, your monetary goal. I think a lot of people aim too high at first, and so it gets hard to meet that goal. What I did is I kind of calculated, I gave a rough estimate, and I was like, look, this is the bare minimum of what I need to just get the project started. Just get it off the ground, get it moving, and hopefully with a little bit more momentum, I'll be able to ask for more funding. So my initial thought was for $10,000, because with Kickstarter, You have exactly 30 days to raise that money. And if you don't meet your goal, all that money, even if you raise like 29,000, or, you know, if your goal is 30,000, you raise 29,000, like all of that money goes back to the donors. In that rule itself, it kind of took a little bit of the risk out, at least for the donor part. For me, as a campaign runner, it definitely made me make sure that I was on my game and that I knew everything that I needed to know to get this campaign started and off its feet. I knew that like the project wasn't going to die if I didn't get the money. I knew that maybe I could launch another crowdfunding campaign or a donation dinner or something like that to make sure that this project was able to get moving. After you decide your monetary goal, and I would keep it again reasonable and small, something that you know you're gonna end up probably 80% funding at least. Because again, if you start asking for high numbers, people can get a little weary about it. You need to be able to convey why you need that money to your donors, to your audience. If you can't tell them why you need it, you're in big trouble because no one's gonna give you free money, okay? I wish. The next thing that you have to do after that is you have to create a great video. The video is so powerful, and I think not enough time is spent into creating an amazing video. Now, for the museum, I was passionate about this project already, so I let that passion kind of come through in my video. I answered all the questions as far as like who, what, when, where, why. You need to set the stage for why this project is important and why people need to care. Also do a great call to action. I mean, I think my call to action was help save history, help save over 200 years of Chinese culture and history. You know, this small donation can do so much in helping us preserve these artifacts. Now, that right there, I mean, who does not want to be a part of history? Who does not want to be a little piece of something that can ultimately leave a legacy, right? So make sure you do a really great call to action and empower your audience to be a part of something bigger than them. A good rule of thumb is to always make sure that the donation gift that the donors are getting in return is about 10% of whatever they donated as far as money goes and what you're paying, right? I would also make it a point to go check out other people's campaigns, whether, you know, it's successfully funded or not. It's a really good baseline for types of gifts that work and types of gifts that don't. As well as, you know, compare and contrast how they ran their campaign, what their video looked like, and so on and so forth. For me, we did a lot of nostalgia gifts. The Bakai Temple, which houses the 2 rooms that hold the museum, is one of the oldest Taoist temples in California history. I believe it was built in 1860. So it has some notoriety to it. But along with the temple is also the Bakai Parade, which is the oldest continuously held parade in California. So there's lots of nostalgia and history that is tied to, you know, this temple and this project and that parade. So we did a lot of gifts. We did magnets that have really nice, pretty pictures of the temple on it and some of the artifacts. We did tote bags. We did posters. We did shirts. We even did placards that would hang up in the museum that had the donation name on it, of, you know, whoever donated and how much they donated. Those are just some of the things that I use, but again, you know, go back and reference other people's campaigns to see how well their gifts did and to maybe get some ideas about what they did at what level of donor. I'll also include the link to my Kickstarter campaign in the description so that you can kind of see how mine was laid out as well. So what good is a crowdfunding, you know, campaign if the crowd itself doesn't know anything about it, right? What I ended up doing is I got a hold of a local PR company who had access to local news outlets, radio, TV, newspaper, magazines, anything like that, right? We're in Northern California, so our nearest biggest market would be Sacramento. And definitely reach out through your resources that you know, because you never know who knows somebody in this field or somebody who could do something. But I reached out to a PR firm, and they were absolutely crucial in getting the word out about this project. I highly recommend that if you're gonna do something like this, to consider doing a PR firm where they could do press releases to local media outlets. It's very helpful in getting your project on the radar and getting the community support. Now, I know a lot of you are like, oh, I can't afford, a PR firm to do all of that for me. Some PR firms will do it pro bono. Some PR firms, depending on the project, and depending on the firm itself, have a certain amount of community hours that they have to do. I mean, your project could be their community hours as community service hours, as far as, helping you out pro bono or even at a discounted rate. So check into those options, because I can't tell you how important it was that the community know about this project in order for it to be successfully funded. There was only so much social media I could do. And actually, I even went around business to business for a little bit to see if maybe any local businesses would be willing to, do high dollar donations or bigger donations. And high dollar means like $500, $1,000, $1,500. And it's because it's a smaller town, those types of numbers just weren't realistic. So try again as far as, seeking donations and all that kind of stuff. So I decided to go with the Kickstarter campaign after those, local businesses and me reaching out personally didn't really work. But I also knew with a Kickstarter campaign, it can easily get lost. So I needed to empower the audience, and I needed to empower the community and let them know that this was happening, and that I only had a short amount of time for this to actually work. So the next piece in the puzzle you need to talk about is actually your marketing strategy. So the PR firm helps out with a good deal of this, but you need to have a place where people go to, get updates, to donate to your campaign, to where they know what's happening and what you're doing and so on and so forth. For us, it was Facebook. Facebook was a great place for us to keep in touch with everybody, what was happening during the 30 days of this campaign. It was the one-stop shop for everything. And I even posted about the Kickstarter campaign over and over again. On top of using social media, we did use an Instagram, but I found that didn't work as well for what we were doing. Facebook is definitely like a community center, as far as like everybody goes to the Facebook to see what's happening and what's up in the community. Along with social media, I also created, smaller, shorter videos along with the Kickstarter video to help explain the process of a Kickstarter and how it worked. Because a lot of people don't know how it works. And there's only so much that you can put in your video without it kind of getting lost in the actual importance of the project itself. So even though you saw the Kickstarter video and I explained the time crunch and how Kickstarter worked, I did a short 30-second video that allowed me to further explain, like, hey, if we don't raise this money by this date, anything that is raised at all goes right back to the donors. And some people saw that as a call to action of like, okay, well then I guess we gotta move now. And that was actually in one of the articles I read about Kickstarter. One of the perks in, running a Kickstarter campaign is the time crunch, because sometimes if people feel like the date is indefinite, they'll either A, forget about it, or B, not feel the need or the rush to donate now. And with Kickstarter, you only have 30 days. And like I said, if you don't get the money, it all goes back. So I also did the smaller videos. I did little postcards that were written in English and in Chinese. I had donation boxes placed throughout the temple. And then I had posters made. I was really trying to go above and beyond just to tell people what was happening and how they could donate and what they needed to do. Those little things were huge. So I highly recommend that if you're doing something like that, or there's an event that's close or has anything to do with whatever your project is, to take advantage of that event. Because the more people that know about your campaign, obviously, the better. My words of wisdom when it comes to crowdfunding campaigns is do your research, okay? Take the time and do your research, because gosh, it helped me so much. And definitely pick a project that you're passionate about. What this project ended up taking, like I thought it was going to take like a year or two. It ended up taking like 4 years. I would also say that the real work starts after you get the money. You got to fill all of your reward and prizes orders and ship them out and that kind of stuff. And I straight up thought my parents' living room looked like a UPS store for a hot second. I would also say, in order to keep your donors happy, in order to feel like they're involved in their process even after you've taken their money, is to constantly update your project. I always did short update videos encompassing everything we did in that year. We went above and beyond as far as to reach out to our donors and to let them know the progress and the updates that were happening with this project, and to let them know that their money was being spent wisely and that it was going to be done soon. And as soon as we had that grand opening, it was the biggest rush, because everybody who donated got to go in and see it, got to go in and participate in the unveiling of it. Our bigger donors were there. We cut ribbons and all that kind of stuff. So it was great to finally see. Not only was it something that my family and I did, but it was something that the community had a huge part of as well. Getting the community involved, empowering your audience, is definitely something that I would do as well. And you want to make sure that your donors feel involved. And I think the best way to go about doing that is just to keep them updated. So those are my words of wisdom on how to run a successful crowdfunding campaign. If you have questions, definitely leave them in the comment section below. I will try my absolute best to answer anything and all that, come through. Check the links below as far as, my videos or my Facebook page for this project. And hopefully this helped you guys out a little bit on what you can do in order to make sure your campaign runs successfully.